If it is truth you seek, then I will reveal everything. All there is to know of this world.
After the rise in popularity of the Persona series over the last decade, the core Shin Megami Tensei series has sort of felt like the forgotten stepchild. Now with Nocturne getting the remastered treatment, the series has an opportunity to find a brand new audience. If you're like me, coming from Persona first and have been curious about the core Shin Megami Tensei games, Nocturne's tedious design and lack of direction may be too much to muster. However, if you're a fan of the original or enjoy a good challenge from your RPGs, then this might just be exactly what you're looking for. And if you enjoy JRPGs and want to stay up to date with the latest reviews and other fun videos, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything.
The world will fall for its sins, and everyone living will vanish. But I won't let you meet the same fate.
The stories in Shin Megami Tensei games have always been decidedly darker than the typical lighthearted affairs the genre is known for. Nocturne is no exception. The game begins with an ominous message from your teacher asking you to meet her at an abandoned hospital. Right off the bat, Nocturne creates a dark, moody atmosphere, almost feeling like something out of a Resident Evil or Silent Hill game. Slowly exploring the hospital bit by bit feels tense and exciting. Soon after, an event called the Conception occurs, throwing Tokyo into an apocalyptic wasteland full of demons. Your character is then transformed into a demon-human hybrid called a demi-fiend. As a demi-fiend, you obtain new powers and the ability to command demons. From here, a number of parties are trying to rebuild this new world into their own vision, and it's up to you to ensure that things don't descend further into chaos. I'll be honest, the story was far and away my favorite part of Shin Megami Tensei III Nocturne. I love the dark, moody tone it creates. This is something so rarely seen in JRPGs, especially done this well. This is further enhanced by the voice acting. The cast all do a wonderful job in each role, helping Nocturne feel a bit more modern. The original PlayStation 2 release didn't have voice acting, so this edition really gives the HD remaster a leg up. You also have the option to choose between Japanese or English voices, so no matter your preference, Alice has you covered. My only real issue is how much tedious dungeon crawling you need to trudge through to get to meaty story moments. There were times where there were stretches of 2 to 3 hours before I got to see more story moments during my time playing. This really sapped my enthusiasm because I was so engrossed in the plot, but there were so many times I didn't want to actually play the game. And that's not good. I'm sure some of you might just say to put the game on the new merciful difficulty and blast my way to the next story beat, but it's not as simple as that, which I'll talk about shortly. Overall, I enjoyed the story Nocturne had to tell, I just wish I didn't have to wade through so much tedium to experience it. Make no mistake about it, Shin Megami Tensei III Nocturne is a dungeon crawler masquerading as a traditional JRPG. Sure, there's a world map of sorts that you can walk around, but this really should have just been a menu. There's really not a lot of things to discover, and you don't feel any sense that you're navigating an apocalyptic wasteland. The lion's share of your time in Nocturne will be exploring dungeons, trying to find a MacGuffin, or fight the boss at the end. Early on, the game does a better job of hiding the fact that all these locations are basically just dungeons, but very quickly it starts introducing mechanics that will more than likely frustrate you. You have dungeons that send you back to the beginning if you take the wrong fork in the road, there's a dungeon with rotating paths until you can set the right one, and another where you need to constantly go up and down ladders that are obnoxiously far away from each other. Basically all trial and error. I personally get zero enjoyment out of dungeons like this. They feel like segments I have to tolerate instead of enjoy. I'm not really using my brain, I'm just trying every option until one works. What you're looking at here is what most of your experience in Nocturne will be like, mindlessly going to every door and hitting every dead end until you happen upon the right path. If you're not a fan of this type of gameplay, then you might as well just turn this review off right now because I promise you, you won't enjoy this game. Of course, as you crawl through dungeons, you'll partake in turn-based combat, so let's touch on that. If you've played a Persona game before, the combat will feel fairly familiar with a party of up to 4 characters, an elemental weakness system, and demons that serve as your other party members that might look familiar. To add new demons to your party, you'll need to recruit them. Some might simply want items or money, while others need you to answer questions in a particular way. Once recruited, they'll level up and unlock new abilities. You can also get even more powerful demons through fusion. Essentially, you combine 2 demons to create a stronger one. Before combining them, you can choose which skills will carry over. In the PS2 version, this was random, so it's nice to be able to have this level of control over fusion. You'll constantly be running into new demons, so this recruitment system is nice not only because it allows you to keep your party fresh, but also scratches that collecting itch. Even with all these options to change up your party though, Nocturne can be quite punishing. On the top of the screen in combat, you'll see symbols that represent actions for your party or the enemy's party. If you hit an enemy weakness, it grants you an additional turn and lights up one of the symbols. However, if you miss an attack, you lose an extra symbol and could potentially pass the turn back to the enemy. You also have the phases of the moon to deal with called the Kagutsuchi. Depending on which phase it's at, this can dictate a number of things from items and chests, random encounter rates, and even the effectiveness of certain skills. Nocturne also has a big emphasis on buffing and debuffing, so having a variety of these skills across your party is important. For example, the infamous Matador is the first real skill check in the game, and if you aren't prepared, you're gonna get wiped out pretty quickly. This is frustrating because going in, you have no idea what you need, so you just prepare the best you can. If you lose, you need to start over and come in with the proper skills. Again, like with the dungeons, it's trial and error. When it comes to games, I'm okay failing because of my own skill or poor strategy, but when I lose because of something I couldn't have known going in, that just makes me feel like not wanting to play anymore. There are plenty of people who like this sort of trial and error experimentation when it comes to their games, but it's just not for me. For those that really struggle with the combat or simply want to make the grinding easier, this remaster does have immersive difficulty as free DLC. This is essentially a very easy mode. You have money and experience that just rains down after every battle. Thankfully, you're able to toggle the difficulty at will from the menu, so you're able to find the right balance when fighting random enemies and bosses. The real nail in the coffin for me with Nocturne though was its lack of directions. And I don't mean literal directions, although this compass is next to useless and should have just been a minimap. I mean figuring out where to go next to progress the plot. I lost count of how many times I had to look up a walkthrough for the PS2 version because I felt I had completely exhausted all of my options. I don't expect the game to lead me by the hand everywhere, but some better idea of where I was supposed to go next would have been nice.
My strange experience, your new look, something tells me calling the cops won't do us any good.
From a visual perspective, Nocturne holds up quite well and looks even better with an HD facelift. The art direction has really stood the test of time and certainly has aged better than its fellow PS2 counterparts Persona 3 and 4. The only shame about this remaster is that it doesn't run at 60 frames per second. From what I understand, this isn't a power issue, but rather has something to do with how the game was originally made and would have taken a lot of extra work to get the frame rate up. But hey, give it enough time, I'm sure there'll be mods for it. This lack of extra work extends to a lot of other aspects of Nocturne HD. For starters, the cutscenes didn't get remastered, so they're in this very muddy 4:3 aspect ratio and look pretty bad. Some are more jarring than others as they integrate right into the middle of gameplay at times. The music is pretty spotty as well. Most of it sounds great, but some tracks, particularly the combat themes, sound so incredibly compressed. I'm not an audiophile by any means, and even I was taken aback at how poor the quality was on these tracks. Compared to other PS2 remasters like Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy, or heck, even Atlus's own Persona 4 Golden, this feels pretty low effort. Sure, there's the addition of voice acting and the Raito Kuzunoa story, but in terms of, actually remastering the game and adding new quality of life updates, there's not much to mention. And speaking of the Raito story, I find it odd how in the West we got Dante from Devil May Cry in the original PS2 release, and now he's sold separately as DLC. For a $50 price tag, you figured they could have just included him, but I guess they had to recoup the cost of doing voice acting.
No matter how the world changes, I'll be your pillar of strength.
When it comes right down to it, Shin Megami Tensei III Nocturne HD just isn't a game for me. While its story was compelling, its tedious dungeons and lack of directions were a huge turnoff. I also feel like this remaster doesn't justify its $50 price tag. There have been better remasters that have done more for less. If you're a Persona fan and were thinking of checking this out for curiosity's sake, I really don't think you're going to enjoy this. However, if you're a fan of the original PS2 release or enjoy more of a challenge from your RPGs, then this might just be right up your alley. Now, if you want to hear about another Atlus title that I would highly recommend to just about everyone, then be sure to check out my review for Persona 5 Strikers. It's a fantastic sequel and one of my favorite games of 2021 so far. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe for more regular JRPG content. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.